Today on Investigate TV Plus,
the impact would be enormous, a very devastating, cascading series of events.
almost every aspect of our lives depends on signals from space. But experts say our country's GPS network is vulnerable to attack, and we have no backup should the system fail. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. This critical technology keeps everything from our electrical grid to our economy running. But without it,
these 31 satellites, if something happens to them,
we're toast. We're toast.
Plus, insight into a solution already in development that some say could help in an emergency.
Then turning toxic industrial ruins into urban playgrounds. How a major U.S. city is merging environmental restoration with historical preservation.
And a camping trip takes a terrifying turn when a father and son plunge off an 80-foot cliff.
Without Lewis's help, we weren't going to be able to get them.
How a young boy became the hero his family needed.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. It's inside your phone, your car, even the cockpit of every airliner. GPS.
Developed half a century ago for the military, GPS is now used daily worldwide by more than 7 billion devices.
It keeps Wall Street on time, the power grid synchronized, cell phones operating, and helps get deliveries to your door. But experts now warn that system could be at risk, and there's no backup if it goes down.
Investigative reporter Brendan Keefe takes an in-depth look at how GPS powers our lives and the solutions that could prevent a national catastrophe.
There's a looming threat on the horizon.
The impact would be enormous, a very devastating, cascading series of events.
Airplanes would be grounded.
But eventually, the power grid would stop operating.
First responders would have a hard time getting to emergencies, finding your house.
It is a $1 trillion risk that our economy is facing.
Our economy comes to a halt within a month.
Because we couldn't move data, we couldn't move people, and we couldn't move goods.
No one would have cell service.
The number you have dialed.
Is the government doing enough to address this?
No.
They're talking about GPS, the United States Global Positioning System.
The vulnerability of GPS, both jamming and spoofing, is a real considerable threat to the country and needs to be taken seriously.
Admiral Thad Allen chairs the nation's advisory board on position, navigation, and timing.
Our entire economy could sink if the civilian signal is compromised.
More than 24 top experts sounding the alarm about threats to the system.
We are not seeing fewer incidents of disruption. We are seeing far more.
Until something happens, people aren't aware that there's a vulnerability.
Well, as what usually happens, you deal with the wolf that's closest to the door.
Where in the world are we? GPS brings us down to earth with precise location. But position and navigation are only half the story. The better question is, when in the world are we? GPS is the nation's hyper-accurate clock, and without it, major systems would go out of sync or stop altogether. It's about time to realize it's about time.
We're talking about billionths of a second.
A failure of that timing signal from GPS could cause cascading blackouts across the nation because the plants that power your home are synced to the same GPS signal that is used to time every single trade on Wall Street.
The stock market would shut down.
Yep.
Banks couldn't do transactions. Nope. The United States right now does not have a redundant GPS or timing system.
That's correct.
The GPS is it.
Yes.
These 31 satellites, if something happens to them,
we're toast. We're toast.
Do we have a backup system for this currently in the United States?
Not a single backup.
Brad Parkinson should know. He invented GPS half a century ago for the military.
The GPS utility and usefulness has kind of crept into society, and the average citizen doesn't ever see it. They don't even know it's there. They don't realize the harm that would be done if it suddenly weren't.
The GPS signal is so faint, experts say it's easy to jam.
GPS signal is 1/10 of a millionth of a billionth of a watt.
Or overpower with fake coordinates.
Over 1 month, there were 41,000 Boeing, Airbus, and other aircraft
that were affected by GPS spoofing.
For less than $100, you can build a spoofer jammer capable of taking out any GPS receiver, no matter how expensive it is, anywhere.
Including on an airplane loaded with passengers.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, an airplane doesn't know where it is. That's a problem.
We've had cases in the maritime where the actual position of a ship is shown to be inland.
Shown to be inland?
Yes.
Russia and China both have extensive backup systems, while we have none under U.S. control.
Our adversaries know we are at risk.
Experts want to bring GPS back down to Earth, literally. Phone companies propose using cell towers as a GPS backup, one of many land-based solutions.
The broadcasters have a solution to this?
Yes, we have. The solution is something that we call BPS, and that is for Broadcast Positioning System.
Television towers already send signals out across the nation. Sam Matheny and the National Association of Broadcasters invented a GPS backup, embedding precise time information into TV broadcasts.
In essence, the exact same timing signal that is transmitted via a GPS satellite, except we're doing it from a television tower. That system is capable of carrying time that's as good as what you get from GPS.
It shows great promise. It has great accuracy. The infrastructure is already in place.
The GPS Advisory Board has been recommending a backup system for decades. The alphabet soup of agencies responsible for GPS have not yet taken that advice.
I think there's going to be a reckoning.
Everyone in that room is concerned about this.
You betcha.
And right now, all you can do is advise.
That's correct.
You can't actually take action.
No.
The urgency is now. We've got to get it on.
It's all about timing and a signal as invisible as the threat just over the horizon.
Russia and China have demonstrated anti-satellite technology, but taking out the entire GPS system would require an extraordinary amount of knowledge and advanced equipment.
However, experts say the signal is susceptible to localized jamming and spoofing, which occurs every day. If the constellation of 31 satellites was taken out or disrupted, the U.S. would have to depend on signals from foreign systems, including Europe's space-based system. You can learn more about the options on InvestigateTV.com. Just search Dead Reckoning.
Coming up, rusted towers emerge like art installations.
Places like this show us possibility.
We dig deep into the controversial decision to turn contaminated land into a popular park.
Then later, sweaty sunrise sessions inspire lasting connections. How more and more people are finding a support system through fitness. Our in-depth coverage continues. You can get connected to Investigate TV Plus on all social media platforms. You may have them in your city, testaments of the industrial age, old buildings or structures that have sat abandoned for decades.
But instead of leveling the past, cities nationwide are repurposing the remnants into vibrant spaces that can be enjoyed for generations to come. But it's complicated.
Reporter Josie Sturman takes us to the state of Washington to see how they're working to take a toxic site and turn it into something more inspiring.
When you think Seattle, you think Space Needle, seaplanes, and Starbucks. But there's another part of the city's story that's just as central.
In some ways, it's a reminder to the folks of what was here in the past.
What was still is, at least on the shores of Lake Union, where echoes of the Emerald City's past cast coffee-colored shadows. These dark towers stand in the heart of the city, monuments of an industrial boom that literally brought light to Seattle. For decades, they were used as part of a gasification plant, burning coal to create gas that illuminated the city.
There's always folks who are like, why don't you get rid of those old towers?
But instead of tearing down these rusted remnants, city leaders sought a cleaner future in what is now known as Gasworks Park.
You know, there's a certain, attraction to be able to reuse it and, use these artifacts and kind of tell a story of what was here before.
It's a complicated tale. It started when the plant shut down and the city bought the land in the 1960s for use as a park.
Places like this show us possibility.
As the chair of urban design and planning at the University of Washington, Brandon Bourne knows the only barrier to change is imagination. He says the founder of the landscape architecture program at UW had it, proposing that instead of raising the plant, the city should put down roots and focus on cleaning and greening the space while also honoring the site's legacy.
When we sweep aside the history of a place, we lose the magic and significance of that place, and we make it kind of like anywhere.
But there's nothing like this pretty much anywhere, from the giant slope of the manufactured Kite Hill to the pipework purposefully colored to encourage play.
It took some doing, and it took a lot of visioning and a lot of community meetings to move people away from the very standard understanding of we need to scrape this site clean to we can work with what we have here and think about the structures and the history.
These industrial skeletons aren't the only things left behind in this park. Something else a lot less appealing is also part of the lingering history here. Toxic contaminants that haven't been completely cleaned up yet. Tell us, what kind of hazards existed at this site? What made it dangerous at one point?
Well, there were a lot of byproducts from coal gasification. A lot of that is petroleum hydrocarbon type things.
To put it simply, those things were hazardous toxins from the plant that tainted the soil and water. Back in the mid-90s, Amber Wong worked for the Environmental Protection Agency and started the push to clean the park. Almost 40 years later, she's retired, but the work's still ongoing.
Do you think people realize what the history of this place is and that there was a danger that they had to mitigate and are still mitigating?
No, nobody knows about this. I mean, it's one of the amazing things to me because people love this park. It's kind of ironic because you've got these structures that are clearly industrial and people just don't think about it, I bet.
Some even as they step by the not-so-subtle reminders, signs that point out the park's toxic past, especially along the waterfront, is still very much a current problem.
It's a bit like a twister board of contamination. It's not consistent throughout. Some areas are clean, some areas have contamination. So
the effort still has a few more years to go, with a few select areas still being remediated. Project leaders say the risk, even in those spots, remains low, with millions spent to make sure the park is a safe space in the city center.
This is not a place where people live. For the way that it was remediated, this is a perfect use, or this is a perfect use given that type of remediation. They were married together.
A marriage of past and present, manufacturing that's been made fit for man from the inside out.
While people in Seattle can marvel at the beauty of Gasworks Park, Atlanta and New York have both used relics of their industrial past to support their city's future growth.
In Atlanta, the Beltline transformed neglected railroad tracks into a 22-mile walking loop that connects dozens of neighborhoods, businesses, and public spaces. 800 miles north, New York City's High Line was once destined for demolition, but the community rallied together to repurpose the old elevated tracks into a nearly 1.5-mile-long greenway and public park.
Still to come, a Boy Scout finds courage to overcome a challenge that saved his father and brother's life.
But first, singles chasing connection ditch dating apps for early morning jogs.
My grandmother was telling me that I should probably try to find a girlfriend.
How a running club inspires new relationships of all kinds. You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime, streaming online. Get the app for Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. They're free to download. Maybe you've heard about them, seen one in your neighborhood, or even joined one. Run clubs. While it's a great way to stay active, it's also a great way to meet new people.
Reporter Phoebe Murray shows us how a run can inspire new connections.
Good morning, Madison! Woo!
It's 6:28 on the dot, and class is in session at Bascom Hill.
It's another beautiful day to move together and build community.
Early risers are showing up to sweat.
Let's get a bounce going and bring it in.
Talk to someone they wouldn't normally interact with in a low-stakes environment.
They call themselves the November Project. a free fitness club in Madison.
Look at that sky.
Oh, it's juicy.
The workouts wake these runners up, but it's the relationships that keep them coming back.
Show of hands, who joined the November Project to meet new people?
People are very much showing up looking for community way more than they're looking for like a good workout.
My grandmother was telling me that I should probably try to find a girlfriend.
Ben Rubel joined November Project 2 years ago when he moved to Madison.
If I can find her, then that would be great.
As the adage goes, love finds you when you least expect it.
I was not looking for love, like that kind of love.
Ashley King joined a year later.
Also, like not closed off to it, and it just happened, and we formed a connection.
The two are now closing in on their 1-year anniversary.
I can take a moment to enjoy the beautiful sky, and then do some toe touches.
It's this sort of weird, quirky thing where people get to act a little bit like kids at recess.
Others weren't looking for love, but new faces in their life. Meet the self-proclaimed elder crew of November Project.
I made friendships with people I never would have. Different generations and deep friendships, and people really care about each other.
Young or mature, they call this group family.
Mental, emotional, joyful aspect of this group is what keeps me coming back.
For 7 years, co-leader Aaron Kahn has been waking up early.
I've gotten to hear a lot of the stories about why people choose to show up.
Witnessing connections build from the Hill.
One of the common threads is they just are looking for a change of pace in their life.
We're warming up this way, y'all!
And Kahn is no exception, meeting his partner Kat in 2021.
After a few workouts, we really hit it off. Went on a few dates, and that was that.
Groups like this are sprouting up everywhere. In a recent report from Running USA, the number of running club members in the United States has increased by 25% in the last 5 years, trading online dating for organic meetups.
The apps just don't really work very well most of the time.
And sleep for sunrise sweats.
By the time you get here, you already have done something hard.
Rain, shine, snow, sleet, a community that continues to show up.
We always like to say that we get to run up the hill.
10 out of 10 morning.
In Madison, Wisconsin, the November Project meets twice a week through every season, including the cold winter months. It's one of more than 50 chapters worldwide.
Up next, an impressive collection of coins and badges.
This was my life-saving medal.
How a boy's quick thinking during a family emergency earned him his most meaningful award yet. You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime online. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel at Investigate TV. You can catch stories and full episodes. Hiking can be a great family activity and an inexpensive way to get outdoors.
But for one family in St. Louis, their walk through the woods almost turned deadly after 2 people fell off a cliff.
Reporter Caroline Hecker explains how a 12-year-old's quick thinking helps save their lives.
This one?
Challenge coins are Louis Miklovic's thing.
Here's another challenge coin.
Ask to see his collection, and he can tell you everything about each one. He's also a Boy Scout.
That's personal fitness, that's swimming.
Donning quite the collection of his own. He's earned more than a dozen merit badges and medals. His love for the outdoors punctuated by an annual Labor Day family camping trip at Washington State Park. But an early evening hike along a bluff with his dad and brother took a terrifying turn.
I remember grabbing Pete and putting him in the bear hug and saying, "We're going down, hold on, it'll be okay." And then I remember just waking up.
Louis's younger brother, Peter, lost his footing along the edge of the trail, sending him and their father plunging over an 80-foot cliff. When Josh came to, he had one question.
I said, "Where is Louis?"
Louis, after seeing his brother and dad fall, ran back through the woods, stumbling upon a nearby road. A park ranger happened to pass by.
But then I told the ranger that my dad and my brother Peter fell off a cliff.
It seems simple, but for Louis, it was a big deal. Incredibly gifted,
Ulysses S. Grant.
Especially when it comes to U.S. presidents, Louis has autism, making social interactions, especially with strangers, difficult, but not on that day.
This overlook in the winter is pretty bare, but if you take a look in the fall, leaves cover the trees, and that is something park rangers say can make finding someone that's fallen much more difficult. So they credit Lewis's ability to pinpoint the location of the accident in saving them countless hours.
Captain Chris Kreider and another ranger began climbing down the bluff, making their way to Josh and Peter.
We looked down and we were able to spot Josh and the young kid. We started talking to them. They were coherent and was talking back, but you could tell that there was some really bad injuries.
Captain Kreider got Peter to safety with minor injuries. A rescue team was able to carry Josh down to the nearby river, find a boat, and get him to a place where a helicopter could land. Josh suffered a concussion and broken back.
Lewis McLovick.
Lewis's heroic actions nabbed him the Civilian Partnership Award.
So this is me and the government.
He's also sporting some new hardware.
This was my life-saving medal.
How he communicates with others is a challenge, but that day it was all clear. It was all clear. And that is 100% Lewis at his finest.
Captain Kreider agrees.
Without Lewis's help, we weren't going to be able to get them because this would have been a body recovery at that point.
George Washington, John Adams.
A boy in the right place at the right time who, when it mattered most, knew just what to say.
You know, some people always say they don't want to be called a hero, but he's definitely a hero.
So, and just that he was able to like locate that exact place and stay calm and everything. So really impressive for a young kid. Very nice.
Well, that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Tisha Pell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Thanks for watching. On the next Investigate TV Plus, help instead of handcuffs.
I went to jail a lot, and it is part of my story, but I recognize that it doesn't and shouldn't be part of anybody's story.
One city's plan to help sex trafficking victims escape the streets, and its strategy to lock up those exploiting people trapped in the dangerous cycle.